Hi, and thanks for listening. And the question today is, are you or are we a spirit or are we a body? And why would I ask this question? Again, it's to arouse your curiosity, to try to give you a nudge maybe to think outside of the box. My name's Stephen Bones, I'm a shamanic healer. Why not hit subscribe and the bell to help me grow my channel? So, getting back to the question, are you a spirit or are you a body? And this is a huge subject, but I'm going to give you a snapshot of my perspective. And bear in mind, I'm not saying I'm right or wrong, it's just a perspective. You can take it on board, but I'd highly recommend you even if you get some thoughts about it, just go and do your own research. But what I've come to understand is very much as human beings, we've lost our connection to who we really are. We've lost our connection to nature and we've lost our connection to each other. And here's a quick example for you. How about looking in the mirror, look into your own eyes and asking who you are? And I know there'll be a physical body looking back at you. However, the invitation is to look deeper to actually who's in there. We can even ask ourselves, where do my thoughts come from? Where do my emotions come from? Where do my senses come from? And then ask the question again, am I a spirit? Are you a spirit or a body? And my perception is, for what it's worth, and this may be controversial and you don't have to accept anything I'm saying, but it's an interesting perspective for you to go and sort of look a bit deeper. So my perspective is that we are a soul or a spirit, whatever you want to call that. You could call that a super consciousness, you could call it consciousness, whatever you want to call it. It's something bigger than what we realise. But in my own view, I can't really accept the conventional teaching that we actually evolved from apes. This explanation that we were given and taught in our schools, and I think it's still taught, is that there was a big bang and there's nothing really explained what actually happened before that or what caused it. Nobody really gives a consensus because nobody knows. And there doesn't seem to be any firm explanation, and it's sort of been passed over. So in my view, that's a huge coincidence. It was really lucky that this Big Bang thing happened and it created this earth that we're on, this thing that spins around, and then suddenly, poof, out of nowhere came life. I sort of think, really? Then in that life there was some form of ape that evolved into what we are, what they call human beings. Well, I struggled with that for many decades in my life. And don't get me wrong, I didn't make it a quest when I was younger to dig into all of this stuff. Most of it began to come to me in the last few years. I suppose as we get older, we get a different wisdom and we look at things from a different perspective. But the decades prior to this was that sometimes I would ponder on why we were here, where we've come from and where we're going. And that used to come into me quite a while. It came across my space many years ago. So if that story of evolution doesn't sit well with you, then how about life was brought to this planet from a higher intelligence? Another life form maybe from a different universe or dimension, somewhere where we don't yet understand or comprehend because it's far more advanced than we are. And they helped us along the way in subtle ways. They taught, for instance, how to build pyramids and not to bury kings in, but for some form of energy that, again, nobody really understands. There's theories, but nobody really understands. And then how all of a sudden did we suddenly have cows and domesticate them and pigs and sheep and learn to graze them on land that we grew for grazing, and then we learnt to grow vegetables and grow grain all by ourselves. One of those big mysteries. But the big one for me is Egypt and the Mayan sites and the other ancestral sites around the world that are now beginning to show hieroglyphics of people wearing some sort of suit, enlarged heads, hugely tall, and you can see them, they're all very similar. And how did these ancient sites that are dotted around the world at a time when it was totally impossible for civilizations to communicate with each other, how did they all show the same or similar stories? So there you go. That begs the question, are you a spirit or are you a body? And I want to thank you for listening. Take care.